All right, welcome. So I'm taking you on a journey from rainfall, which is kind of the idea and the inspiration, and taking you to kind of the ocean. So from the beginning stages, understanding each individual stage till you get to the ocean, and that is the influence and the impact and the credibility that is super large. Okay. So we're in stage two, and so after the rainfall, the idea it goes into a puddle or a pond, and that is this is kind of a contained potential. You see, the pond is the idea where it becomes kind of fleshed out and becomes real, but in this stage, it is still private, it's still safe, it's still small. And the biggest risk during this time is letting comfort or inaction create stagnation, and that it never gains any sort of movement whatsoever. All right. So, inside of the hero's journey motif that I always talk about, this is the initiation process, this is the call, and this is the initial rumination of the message, right? So, if you look at the hero's journey motif, there is going to be a call to action, and oftentimes there's going to be a initial shrugging off. That is because of the inner dialogue that we go through. Who am I? Who am I to be able to accomplish this? And that's why at the very start of anything creative or anything big, we have to deal with identity issues. Okay? Because if we're not established in who we are, then it's a good possibility that we're going to let fear immobilize us. Because at the very beginning stages, we're going to have to conquer, overcome our comfort zone, and we're going to have to push through our fear. And identity is really what is going to accomplish that for you. Now, I believe that everything flows from who we believe ourselves to be. I think everything flows from a self concept. I think the ceiling that you create for your life, that is the parameters of your life, it is decided by your identity and your self concept, and that we rarely rise above our own self perceptions. Okay? I find that to be absolutely true. In fact, the Bible says that it is to guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flows the issues of life. Now, when you take that into the Greek language, it literally says boundaries. And that your heart is the thing that establishes the boundaries for your life. Now, that's not to say that you can't pass those boundaries every once in a while, but as we know through observation and human experience, that we always fall back to the level of our heart beliefs, and that is our self-concept and who we believe ourselves to be. So right here at the beginning stages of this journey, we have to get thoroughly solidified in who we are, and that is personal identity, personal life mission. Who are we, and what is our hero's journey? And who are we inside of other people's hero's journey? Now, I think Christianity has a leg up on this, and I'll just throw my 2 cents in there. I believe that we have the most empowering beliefs on the planet. We also have some of the most disempowering, but we're talking about empowering beliefs today. And that is, when it comes to identity, I feel like we got the corner on the market. And that's because Christ instilled such a powerful sense of identity, of calling his disciples the light of the world, and sons and daughters of God, and adopted into the family. And he gave this kind of royal sense of identity, of sonship, that is uncomparable to anything out there. So, anyways, if you are a faith-based person, it's going to be far easier for you to get established in who you are, because it's really connected to who God says that you are. And if we can hear his identity spoken over us, then we got the kind of identity and the who are we, who we are kind of settled. Now, social psychologists believe that the identity is shaped during the younger years of life, and it's often shaped by the spoken word of the parents in the form of identity spoken and affirmations given. And that is that in the spiritual realm, then the identity spoken of the Father over us is what solidifies our identity also. All right? Now, I didn't come to preach on that, but in this stage of the pond, you whether you're faith-based or not, you're going to have to understand who you are inside of this thing. And it can't be surface level. Okay, it can't be, well, this is my job or this is my thing. And no, you need to go deeper than what you do. You need to have a solid identity at a heart level because your growth and expansion depends upon it. All right? So inside of the hero's journey, who am I to be able to do this? I need to be established in who I am. I don't have the talent, skills, and resources to do this, so there's limiting beliefs that are connected to my capabilities. All right. Am I able to carry this responsibility and to do this? And you feel quite insufficient at the beginning. All right. So the goal in the pond stage is to begin to concrete something into reality. Now, if you are, the idea or the rainfall is a book, a personal brand, a business, a course, a podcast, it really doesn't matter. That all of this is kind of the contemplation stage. And that is that you are thinking things through. You are getting kind of a clear mental picture of the future. You are solidifying who you are and what you're about, or who this, or what this book is and what it's about, or what this course is and what it's about. So it's all kind of idea generation sort of thing. And that is what we have at the initial stage is potential. And as we know, potential is not reality. All right, there is people who have a lot of potential, but none of it's reality. The way I like to explain this, and I feel like a broken record sometimes, but we have inherent worth, and that is the worth that is established merely by being a human, and the faith-based side of it of being in the image of your Creator, that you're made in the image of God, and so there's a sense of inherent worth. And then there's potential worth. And the goal inside of the pond stage is to begin to flesh out what is potentially possible into some sort of small reps or action behaviors that bring it into reality. Mm-hmm. So it's created in the inside of you, in the thoughts of ideas and inspiration. And now in this stage, it's bringing it into plans and reality. This is where ideas become tangible. Right? Inspiration alone is only part of the equation. And that is, there's a lot of people with a lot of bright ideas. In fact, ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. And that is, everybody has an idea about the thing or the way it should be done. And all these different things. There's all kinds of people that have ideas. And there is all kinds of people that have potential worth. But just having an idea or having potential worth doesn't mean that it gets executed or the plan gets carried out. And that is somebody who has a potential to be an amazing artist, will not become an amazing artist unless they begin to flesh out their ideas and develop the discipline and the habits necessary to achieve the greatness. Now, it doesn't matter which field that you look in. The people that have become great because of their discipline and their habits. Now, that's not to say they didn't have a natural inclination to greatness. And that doesn't mean that they didn't have a skill that was already extraordinary to begin with, right? But we know that potential, ideas, and talent alone is not going to make somebody successful. In fact, if the ego is not in check and all these different things, that all of those things will just cause somebody to crash and burn. Right? And we've seen this through artists who rose to fame and they didn't have the inner sort of character or to sustain them inside of their success. And so they crashed and burned. We know this, right? So in this stage, it's going from this private idea and that now I'm going to begin to take this public. Private to public. From the safety zone of my heart and my mind to the risk zone of putting this out there into the world. All right? And the way that I like to talk about this is kind of the family first principle. And it was really established by Christ when he healed somebody. He goes, man, I want to follow you on and become one of your disciples. I want to do what you do and all this. And he said, go home first. This is why I call it the family first principle. And that is, you want to go out there and conquer the world. You want to experience the ocean and the massive form of impact and influence and all of this different stuff. And Christ would say, well, it starts at home. And that's exactly this principle is, if you are looking to become a great communicator, learn communication with yourself, and that is start communicating to yourself in the way that encourages you, empowers you, and builds you up. And then start encouraging and empowering the people around you, which are the people that are closest to you, which is your family. And start encouraging and empowering them. And then from there, your sphere of influence grows and grows and grows, right? In fact, God has laid out that inside of the church is if you can't begin to develop skills in this area here, that you don't have the right and the authority to carry your skills out here. So the way that relates to business is family first is the people that are closest to you, is kind of communicating your ideas, getting feedback from other people, in your connections that you already have, what problems can you solve inside of the kind of small little circle first. Take it to the pond, to this small kind of little frame first, so you can flesh out all the different things that you need to flesh out. When we started our podcast business, it started with me. And that is, I launched a podcast, and unbeknownst to me, I landed on the new and noteworthy on iTunes, and I rode the wave of kind of success of being visibly promoted by Apple, and it was an awesome experience. And then I'm like, well, actually, the people in my life were like, can you do that again? Can you do that for me? Can you help us? And I'm like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if I can help you or not. This could be just a fluke. I could be not really, not repeatable pattern, right? So I'm like, I'll start another podcast and see if I can create the same thing again. And so I did the exact same pattern that I did for the first time. And I did it for the second podcast, and I did it again. And I'm like, this is neat. I might be able to do this for somebody else. And so on it goes, and that's how it happened. So it was the people that I was already connected with inside of the circle that I was already located. So it was people that I already had a relationship with, and I was able to do the same for them, and then I was able to begin to get the ground floor, the foundation for the business, and to begin to start from there. Okay, so it starts in a small kind of circle. Now, here's my personal opinion: that uh, if we can't communicate well with ourselves and with the people closest around us, we really are not going to be able to communicate in a very empowering way to anybody else. All right, so this is why it is established: start small and then begin to spread out. All right. So the core assignment inside of the pawn, or inside of stage 2, is I need to begin to turn this spark of inspiration and idea into something that is a system. Now, inside of business, a pawn is something that is very small. So inside of, like, let's say the faith-based community for a minute, that it would be you mentoring, one or two guys inside of a group setting. Or it could be you hosting a Bible study at your home. All right. That is kind of just a small little pond. That's why they call them small groups, right? It is this little pond. And then, of course, if you've mastered some of that and you develop some sense of faithfulness and you've raised up a leader inside of your small group, you can empower them and create another small group. This is how multiplication gets achieved, right? And then all of a sudden you find yourself mass producing kind of leaders for small groups. And all of a sudden you have all kinds of small groups. And then your pond turned into multiple different ponds, right? You get what I'm saying. So with business, it would be small. It would be local. It'd be in this small little circle. And you would be have contact or business with those who are in close proximity to you. Now, during this case, your audience is very small, right? If you are a business and you're a local brick and mortar store or whatever it is, and your product is here locally, or your service is here locally because somebody needs to step inside of your establishment to utilize your service, then it is a local ecosystem. And that is, you're totally reliant upon a local economy, right? And here's what I want to share right here is that it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you can think a little bit bigger and think outside of the frame of the local brick and mortar sort of thing, that you can increase your income exponentially if you create something that is virtually, and that does not require somebody to come into your office or to your establishment. And that is, somebody in New York can purchase your products and your services and utilize your skills and abilities, right? This is where someone goes local, that is city, and begins to go more national or nationwide, is because they have the ability to produce a product or service that isn't confined to the pond. I personally think that I would probably go back to working a 9 to 5 if the services that I have provided through my company was contingent upon a local sort of endeavor. Coming from small country towns, and we have a property, in the country in Missouri, population 1,000, and ain't nobody there particularly thinking about marketing or doing anything like that. And some of the other smaller towns are still kind of a failure to innovate and there is a lot of, I mean, they're still advertising on billboards and magazines and doing very old school kind of advertising, and they'll probably not innovate or change anytime soon. Right? They're at the final stage of their business development where they're thinking of handing off. There's probably not going to be any change or innovation that's going to. So needless to say that if I was going to rely on something locally, that I would be broke. Now, that may not be the case for you. You may have a thriving practice, chiropractic, dentist, doctor, whatever it is. But just think of what would begin to happen if you thought outside of the pond. Now, thinking outside of the pond is thinking outside of the box. And that is, I have this location, I have this place, and how can I begin to think more nationally and step outside of the box and kind of transcend the pond? That is local reach. If you're just relying on local reach, it would benefit you greatly to be in a thriving community that's constantly growing. Otherwise, there's a certain cap according to the results that you're able to get. All right. So inside of the pond, the reach is local. It's your town or your small little circle or your church or your chamber or your gym, and it's very, very small. And that is, in this frame, it is mainly referrals. It's reputation driven, and it's kind of word of mouth, and it's also kind of repeat customers that reoccur. All right. Now, there's nothing wrong with staying in the pond, but it's super, super difficult if you're not in thriving populations or locations to scale your business. You could grow your business, and that is year over year you can gain 3 to 7% or whatever it is, and get a little bit more share, and you can grow your business, but you can't scale your business. And that is, over a couple years time, you cannot you can't double, or definitely can't even 10x if you're in the small little pond. Okay, so I benefit us greatly to think outside of the box, and how are we going to get the reach and the influence that we want. So I'm under the impression, if you're listening to this, that you have a desire to be in the ocean. And that is to experience the vastness of having massive impact and massive influence, and that you are in this stage and you want to graduate from this stage and you want to move on. And that is, you want to get beyond the limitations. The limitations of just a local demand, just local networks, and just what you have here at this location. All right? You want to press on. You want to go to the next level. You want to go to the next stage. Now, some of the enemies at this stage is that it could be comfortable, right? Because you can have success in a pond. You absolutely can. Like, you look, local businesses and all this stuff that rely upon just kind of the small little circle, and they're experiencing a sense of success. And that is, you would get enough just to have enough, and you can have a sense of comfort kind of creep in. And that is, well, this thing's kind of nice, so I'm just going to keep it here. And I've even went through that, like, virtually with the virtual service business, and looking at scaling, and what would it take, and do I really want to do this, or I could stay at this comfortable level and I could just ride this thing out and I could just stay here, right? Comfort. Now, when you got something kind of small and contained, it's easy to get comfortable. And it's easy just to kind of keep it here. Now, in a church setting, it would look like that you've founded a church and it has grown and it's just kind of local. And there is no reproduction of leaders. There is no movement. There is no birthing other ministries. It's just, I'm going to stay right here inside of comfort. And let me tell you, those churches die. That's just the reality, because anything that doesn't reproduce itself and to grow and expand and to think bigger usually becomes inward focus and comfort centered, and that is nobody is taking any risk anymore, and so it'll eventually begin to die out because it's no longer life-giving and it's no longer a movement. Now the same is true for business, and that is if we just stay where we are and that everything depends upon us to provide the service, then it's going to be capped out at the level of the personal growth of the person. So what this looks like for like a chiropractor is, maybe they start inside of somebody's office. Maybe they rent a small space and it's just them and they're just doing adjustments. And then they grow to, well, I'm going to have somebody, an assistant who manages the front desk and does calls, and then I'm going to get a marketing person, and then they're faced with a limit and capacity, and that is that they've come to the point where they can do all it is that they can do. The only thing that they could do is to hire another person like them, and that is to hire another chiropractor. Now, there are chiropractors out there who are more business savvy, and they're outside of their business now, and they're not really doing much chiropractic anymore, but they're managing their chiropractors. Now, there are doctors that are doing the same thing that rarely do much of anything, but they're managing their physicians, right? And that is because somewhere along the way, they decided that they were going to bust through their comfort zone and they were going to stop thinking small. When it came to the moment of decision where I was just going to keep it here in my nice little pond, they decided that they were not going to be scared, that they were going to take the risk and they were going to break through. All right? Now, the second enemy at this phase is isolation. And that is, if you keep it small and contained, you're pretty much going to be unnoticed. You're going to keep it pretty much private. And if you keep something kind of under wraps, there is a possibility of not gaining momentum, missing the opportunity, missing the edge, and not particularly moving forward and growing. Now, the third enemy is fear of being seen. Now, there is a lot of false humility that says that making money is evil, or that having influence is going to be cause of vanity, and that it's going to be for the flesh or for the ego and all these different things. And it can be. For the person who hasn't healed or done some heart work, this very well could be something bad. But influence matters. Being seen and visible matters. Having impact matters. And no matter what anybody tells you, numbers matter. They do. Let me tell you why numbers matter. And I think we've been shoved this down our throat for the last 20 years, and I know that I have personally, that the number or the size doesn't matter. And the people that are propagating this they do it honestly, and that is that your ego And that is your sense of self, your self-estimation should not be attached to results. And that you should kind of separate who you are from the things that you do so you can be established in your identity. So whether you get results or not, it doesn't kind of deflate your sense of identity. So I get where they're coming from. But if it's in a business setting, every client that you have is another person that you help. And so you should want to help more people. And when it comes to your church and maybe the salvation of somebody's soul and them experiencing Christ and the radical transformation that he offers, bringing people out of the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, that you would want to get as many people as possible, because it would be more transformative experiences. All right. So whoever sold us that numbers don't matter, don't understand that people matter, and each number is a person. So of course they matter. Behind the number is a person. Behind every client that I have is another person I help get their voice out into the world. So of course I want more numbers. And so when it comes to reach into influence, it's like, well, how many people do I want listening to my podcast? How many people do I want inside of my group? How big do I want my email list? And with every single one of those, I can tell you as big as potentially possible for my talent, skills, and resources and my character. That's how much I want, as many as possible, right? Because the more ears that I have listening to me is the more ears that it's going to be affected by my positivity and by my mindset and the success that I can help them get. So you might ask yourself, well, in a church setting, would you be okay with 100 people? Would you be okay with 200 people, 300 people? As many as possible within my potential and capabilities, right? As many as possible. Now, I don't believe you have the right to grow beyond your ability to serve. And that is that if you can't serve at that capacity, I don't think you have the right to grow at that capacity. So I get that frame, but it's like when I look at, my podcast growing and growing and growing, and launching different podcasts and getting influence and through the different avenues or the biggest podcasts that I have, having 12,000 listeners every week that are listening to my show, like, cool, I want more. I want more people listening to me because I want to be influential and contagious as possible to get people off the sidelines. And somewhere along the line, they're going to hear the gospel. And so I want as many people to hear the good news of the kingdom and the transformation that Christ provides. And so as many people as I can reach, amen. Let's do it. I'm all for it. All right? Fear of being seen. This is real. People are actually scared to put themselves out there. And they say like these humble things like, that whatever, keep themselves small, and they use a guide of religiosity to do it. It's not about the numbers. I don't know how else you think impact is created but by reaching one, and then reaching one more, and reaching one more. And as you reach one and one more, that's three. So the reason why that we have numbers inside of the Bible is because somebody decided to count. And that is the reason why we know so many souls were saved at Pentecost, is because someone decided to take account. All right? Or maybe they decided to kind of count this little section and begin to estimate the most, but it doesn't matter. They counted, and they counted because it mattered to them, because they were going for influence and impact and change and transformation. So it mattered. Whatever you track grows. Whatever numbers you look at is the numbers that begin to expand and to grow. It doesn't matter the numbers in my bank account. Yeah, it does. Not for vanity's sake, for you can go around and see how much you make, or to buy flashy, $1 million cars or whatever for ego trips, and to point your finger at how poor everybody else is. Like, no. But for influence and impact in, what you want to create inside of the world, yeah, it does matter. It matters a lot. Enemy number 4 is stalling in preparation. And that is just circling around the idea and the refinement of idea, and build out kind of the ecosystems for the idea, and never really solidifying the service and the offer in tangible means. Okay? Now, I've identified these enemies as the builder, and that is the builder mask. And that is, I'm going to build out this whole thing, branding, tools, courses, books, like all of these different things, and never actually engage in a win-win relationship with somebody that needs your services or solves any problems whatsoever. And so this person builds on the system and structure, the builder mask, and they're building something that they don't even know if it works. The hidden man. And that one, he stays private because of insecurity. Visibility seems way too risky for him. The perfectionist won't do a thing, won't show it to the world, won't start a system and process because it's not perfect. Let me tell you, refinement happens as people go through your journey and process. In fact, one of the courses that I created recently is that I sent a bunch of people through there, and so they can go through the whole system and process, and so I can get the refinement of it. And the feedback that I got was there was like 4 deficiencies. So as they went through the process, they're like, what about this and what about this? And I'm like, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Oh, this thing doesn't work inside of the system. Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for your feedback. I absolutely appreciate you. Helped me refine this thing and you made it better. Thank you so much. I don't go, oh my God, they're picking apart this thing that I created. There was a part that was confusing, like blah, 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 blah. And let it go to my sense of security. No, I'm trying to create something awesome. All right. All right. So there's a mindset that is required. And that is the mindset of reps. Now, the reason why people get so well at their craft is because they practice, practice, practice. All right. And that is, I would add a level to that, because practice doesn't make perfect. Practice actually makes permanent. But practice, refine, practice, refine, practice, refine. That's what makes perfect. Not practice makes perfect. Because if you're constantly practicing a bad golf swing, there's no amount of repetition for a bad golf swing that's going to make you perfect. All right? It's only going to be the execution of the thing, and then looking back on the thing and refining it, and then making it better next time, and then increasing your reps, increasing your capacity, getting better and better, and constantly putting things out into the world and constantly refining. This is what's going to perfect. Not sitting in isolation in a room somewhere trying to make it polished and perfect before you present it to the world. All right? Ain't gonna work. So you got to take on the mindset of reps. Got to take on the mindset that this is my baby. I'm going to deliver. And that means you are going to protect your time. You're going to focus on the thing, and you're going to develop consistency right here. Time, focus, consistency. All right? If you are working a 9 to 5 and you're working for the man and you've decided you had an idea and you want to begin to flesh this out, you're going to have to find the time, you're going to have to focus on the thing, and you're going to have to develop some sort of consistency. In fact, what I honestly recommend for people that are working for the man in 9 to 5 is use your spare time to create the thing that you want to create, and do so with time, focus, and consistency until the thing begins to outgrow the other thing, and you got to let it go. So you can go all in with this. All right. I don't recommend you just cut your 9 to 5 off and go all in with some idea, because most people have a family to take care of, and most people need food and other things to survive. Now, if you built a runway that you could survive for a year without kind of tapping into that, then maybe. But I wouldn't do that unless you already had a paying client and already fleshed out a system and process of transformation that somebody goes through. All right. I would not do that until you've had proof of concept. All right. It's just wisdom. Now, the craftsman mindset says that I'm here to get better. I'm not here to get applause or affirmation or validation. I'm here to get better. Now, inside of the pond is where your voice begins to mature. And that is, you become kind of solidified in who you are and what you're about and the message that you're bringing to the world. And you're getting super, super clear. And you start doing reps and you start growing until you begin to bust out of the pond mindset. All right? So in the hero's journey motif, that it's a call to action, and you decided that you're going to bear the full weight of the responsibility, and that means the someday, it's no longer compatible inside of this stage. It's not someday, it's today. Today I'm doing what? For the furtherance of the vision and the goal and the idea that I have today, I am doing what? What am I going to do? This is what it's going to look like to win at this stage. Now, inside of your branding or how you're going to represent yourself, in this stage, you already know who you serve, you know the problem that you solve, you know what you want to be known for, and you know the results that you can create. This has been established inside of this phase, and this is the wins inside of this stage. The third win is the style of communication that you're starting through repetition and reps. Your voice is starting to get wings. You know who you are. You know what you want to say. All right. It's getting solidified. And lastly, the win at this stage is that you have a viable offer. Now, it doesn't matter if it's small. The thing that matters is some sort of conversion. All right. That you have a system and a process that you've got in play that you're able to convert somebody to something. Now, we have the skills a lot of times to do this locally inside of our pond, right? And that is those who are creating a virtual brand and becoming more national, is that all of their talent, skills, and abilities has been inside of a local marketplace. And that is, they know how to do all of that stuff. But virtually is a whole nother world. And have you got a viable offer for something virtually? Can you communicate that in an effective way? Can you see where people are located inside of the journey and give them a sense of security and promise of transformation? And here's the big thing. Can you get outside of your small circle to the people that you know and begin to reach the people that you don't know, and to get them through a kind of pre-customer journey of attraction method that pulls them into your ecosystem? All right. This is going to be the differentiator of whether you're successful or not, is do you have the ability to see outside of the pond and to begin to reach people who are outside and to bring them in, people that you don't even know. All right? All right. So rainfall is the idea in the call. The pond is the container. It is small. And the enemies that you're going to have to face is all the comfort zone, all the fears, all the things that want to keep you small and contained and locally. Okay? That's it. All right. I'll see you tomorrow, and I'm excited to share with you stage 3 inside of the journey. This is where momentum begins to happen. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.